Support Name Explain on Patreon for ad-free videos, exclusive podcasts and blog posts, and to help choose what names get explained. Click the link in the description.
People from the United States of America have been called an awful lot of things across the nation's history. The most popular term for its citizens is American. That, however, can even cause some debate, as technically everyone who lives on this giant landmass, which spans from Canada to Argentina, can be called an American, as all this land is called the Americas / North and South America. Perhaps United Statesian would be a more fitting term. Yank / Yankee is of course another term we've looked into in the past for people from the USA, but even that has its issues. Of course, there are more state-specific terms for residents too, names like New Yorker, Californian, and even the more unique Hoosier for someone from Indiana. I'm sure you understand where I'm coming from with all this. People from the USA get a lot of names thrown at them. Today's video is about one of the more infamous titles that people from the USA have been given, that being the term of gringo, as well as its feminine form of gringa. Now, this is a name with an awful lot of connotations to it, and when I hear it, so many questions come to mind. First and foremost, however, is the name of gringo racist? It seems that this first question does not have the clearest of answers. There are tons of different articles and forum posts out there discussing this subject, and the answers are mixed. Some sources come to a conclusive yes that this is a racist term, while others come to the decision that it isn't racist. A term I saw used often in reference to this name is it being a disparaging name, a name that isn't so much offensive but used more often than not in a hostile manner, kind of like the word idiot, I suppose. Idiot unto itself isn't an offensive word. We don't bleep it out on the television, but we often use it towards people we don't like or people we're being unkind to. Unlike the word idiot, however, gringo points towards a specific group of people, hence why many feel it is racist. You can be an idiot regardless of where you come from or what you look like. Another fact about gringo not being as offensive as other words is how commonly it is used. Like, there's even a 2018 film called Gringo, and no one really seems to be annoyed with this movie's name, though apparently it's terrible and bombed at the box office, but that's besides the point. Of course, attitudes across the world to certain words are always changing. Words once deemed fine can become taboo. Perhaps this will happen to gringo one day in the future too. I just also really need to state that this is a topic I'm very removed from, being from the UK and everything. The content of this video derives solely from my research I did online, as opposed to any actual real world experiences I have witnessed or been a part of myself. If you have more personal experiences with this term, please do let us know down in the comments below. And apologies if this word or other words I'll be using throughout this video upset you in any capacity. I'm talking about them from a purely educational perspective, with no intention of calling any one person in particular these names. Also, I'm curious to know how angry YouTube will be at me for talking about them. They seem to be a lot more chilled these days though, I must admit. As I mentioned, when comparing gringo and idiot, I said that anyone could be an idiot, while gringo points towards a specific group of people. So what group of people are being most often referred to as gringos then? Well, once again, that's kind of up for debate too. Despite the fact I've been saying it's used for Americans in this video, that can be debated. There are once again all kinds of articles out there explaining who exactly gets called a gringo. The most popular idea about who gets the name gringo applied to them seems to be white US citizens, aka white Americans. And yes, I know I started this video by saying American isn't technically the best name to use for people from the USA, but for ease's sake I'll be using it in the rest of this video. Go tell me how annoyed you are about it down in the comments below if that helps you sleep at night. This definition creates something of an issue, however, as there are many Americans who are not white, and many white people who are not American. Like myself, an example. As a white British person, do I get called a gringo? Or does a white person from Canada or Germany get called a gringo too? What about an African American person or an Asian American person? Are they gringos too? Well, it seems to be a case-by-case situation. This is why we run into issues by using such broad strokes as referring to all Americans as gringos. One of the most interesting debates, however, comes with American citizens who are of Hispanic or Latin American descent. Yes, Hispanic and Latin American are two different things, and yes, I promise one day I will make a video on the matter. Ada Ramirez's great article, Who Exactly is a Gringo, shines a great light on this term and her experience with it as someone of Latin American origins living in the USA. She says, I may have been born in Guatemala, but I was raised in Florida, regardless of the fact that I've lived in the US since I was 2 years old. Most Americans would find it strange to hear my grandma occasionally calling me a media gringa, a half gringa. I speak Spanish at home, and my last name is Ramirez. My mother is Nicaraguan and my father is Guatemalan. But my grandmother knows that even though I was born in Guatemala, I'm a foreigner in my place of birth. I have no concrete ties to Guatemala or its culture. I have lived my entire life in the US. I am, as grandma says, media gringa. Most people think that gringo is only a derogatory epithet for white Americans, and they incorrectly assume that any use of the word is inherently offensive. That is not the case. It's a really interesting article that I would highly recommend reading for yourself. Being called half gringos does not seem to be where it ends for American citizens of Hispanic/Latin American descent. Two terms I found of note to refer to Americans with Hispanic roots, specifically Mexican, were Chicano and Pocho. These are two names that once again carry a lot of connotations, meanings, and images. Like with gringo, the offensiveness of these two terms seems to be debated. Chicano in particular seems to have started life as a racial slur, but was reclaimed by Mexicans living in America during the 60s and 70s. With the Chicano movement. I just want to stress once again, apologies if my use of these words upsets you. As I said up top, I'm just using them for educational reasons. Chicano seems to simply be a term for those from Mexico or with Mexican origins living in the state. As for where the name comes from, it seems to be a corruption of sorts of the Spanish pronunciation of Mexican. Mexicano became just Chicano. Pocho is used for Mexicans living in the states too, but carries more connotations with it. Pocho seems to be used more for those who are from Mexico/have Mexican roots, but do not know too much about Mexican culture or not even speak much Spanish. This is because they were born in the USA to Mexican parents, or maybe they left Mexico at a very young age. Whatever the case, the term seems to come from the Spanish word of pocho, meaning fruit that has become rotten and was then applied to these people. It seems like with many other terms, this is one that's also been debated over how appropriate it is. Once again, share your personal experiences with this name if you have any down below. That answers my question of who gets called gringos, but my next question is, who are the ones calling these people gringos? The popular answer for this one is undoubtedly people of Hispanic roots in Central and South America, with people from Mexico specifically often being pointed towards. There's of course way more to it than that though, and it's worth mentioning here that not every Hispanic person is calling every white American a gringo. That's all very broad strokes. While this name does have roots in Spanish-speaking America, how it's used across the continent varies, it seems. Wikipedia actually has a really interesting list of different American nations and how the name is used in them. It does state that in Mexico it refers to white Americans, which is how the name is most popularly understood, but apparently in nations like Bolivia and Peru, it is used for blonde people, though Wiki slaps a big old citation needed on that entry, so forgive me if that's not the case. While its use varies from person to person, it's pretty safe to say that people primarily calling others gringos are those living in Latin America or those of Latin American descent, especially from the Spanish-speaking parts of Latin America. This is a word deeply rooted in Spanish American culture, and while South America is very Spanish, there's also that humongous Portuguese-speaking nation of Brazil too. What kind of standing does the word have in Brazil and Portuguese? Is it used at all? Well, apparently yes. And not only is it used in the nation, its meaning seems to be more universally understood and way more broad in definition. From my research, it seems that in Brazil, gringo can be used to refer to anyone foreign and isn't seen as being particularly offensive either. This means that in Brazil, I would definitely be a gringo, as would someone from the USA, or Japan, or Kenya, or even the Arctic Circle. I suppose the final thing we need to ask about this name is where on earth did it even come from in the first place? Well, this is a word with quite a few etymologies floating around for it. Many of them, however, have proven to be folk etymologies that came about during the Mexican-American War from 1846 to 1848. This definitely would have been a time when gringo would have been uttered quite a bit, to say the least. These folk etymologies range from it deriving from songs the US troops would sing, starting with the words green grow, such as green grow the rushes or lilacs. Another idea is that it came from Mexican troops yelling green, go home, at American troops because they were dressed in green. One other folk etymology has it coming from the St. Patrick's Battalion, a group of Irish and European soldiers who fought on the Mexican side during this war. They would supposedly chant Ellen Goblach, meaning island forever, and this would get corrupted into gringo. While these are fun stories, they all have the classic trappings of folk etymologies and aren't thought to be the true origin of this name. So where did it come from then? Despite being so linked with Mexicans and Americans, it's thought to come instead from Greek. Not the Greek language that is, but literally from the Spanish word for Greek, Griga. Greek is an incredibly interesting language, but it's very unique in the fact it doesn't have much in common with many other languages on our planet. To a lot of non-Greek speaking people, the language has become something of a stand-in to refer to anything foreign and incomprehensible. To a lot of the non-Greek speaking world, the language has become something of a stand-in to refer to anything foreign and incomprehensible. Here in English, we have the idiom of "that's all Greek to me" when referring to something we have difficulty understanding. This difficulty in comprehending Greek applied to Spanish speakers too, and their name for the language of Griga got applied to all things foreign and out of the ordinary. As the new world started to grow and change, so did this word and who it applied to. Of course, in Brazil it held on to that meaning of all things foreign. However, in many Spanish speaking parts of the continent, it came to be a term of hostility used for those north of the border, and the word itself got corrupted from Griga into Gringo. Though, as we have discovered through this video, this is a name with an awful lot of variables. How offensive it is, who can be called it, and who uses it are all questions that generate interesting discussion and debate. What I can say for certain, however, is that Gringo is way more than just the name Mexican bandits yell at white American cowboys in old Western films.
Thank you to all my patrons who support Name Explain on a monthly basis. Patreon is vital to Name Explain, and donating just $2 a month allows you to enjoy ad-free videos and bonus Patreon exclusive content. It also allows you to help choose what names get explained in upcoming videos, and it gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you so much for all the support you guys give Name Explain. Thank you so much for reaching the end of the video. Check out another video and subscribe to stay in the loop on all things Name Explain. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram where I'm NameExplainYT, and also join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain, both of which will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.